I will start with l'Université McGill est située sur un territoire qui a longtemps servi de lieu de rencontre et d'échange entre les peuples autochtones, notamment les Haudenosaunee et les Anishinaabe. Nous saluons et remercions les divers peuples qui ont enrichi de leur présence ce territoire, accueillant aujourd'hui des gens de partout dans le monde. Et nous avons un bon exemple aujourd'hui. I'd like to start this panel with a McGill-related story of ageism. Sir William Osler was a professor of medicine here at McGill in the late 19th century. He founded later the Faculty of Medicine at Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore. And Dr. Osler was, in his time, a celebrity doctor, the kind you see on television now. And he had a tremendous mustache. And he was also a prankster. He liked to provoke. When he was giving his farewell address in 1905 at Johns Hopkins University, his fame meant that he had a capacity audience, and he did not disappoint. In his speech, he said that men should retire at 60 because they were useless by then. And he added that men, let's remember this was a time when women were still largely barred from the workforce. He said that men actually stopped being creative at 40. And his speech was titled The Fixed Period, after a sardonic novel by Anthony Trollope, set on a Pacific island on which men were retired at 67, given a year to settle their affairs, and then euthanized with chloroform. Osler stopped short of calling for euthanasia, but only just. He was pilloried in the press for his ageism, and he received bags full of hate mail. I wonder how such comments would be received today. We might find that ageist biases are more resilient and persistent than those based on race, gender, and ethnicity, but they are no less ignorant or damaging. The story reminds me of a McKinsey consultant with whom I once worked. He told me that McKinsey, the world's elite management consulting firm, routinely cashiered its employees at age 55. For the firm that tells Fortune 500 companies how to run themselves, 55 is the best before date. McKinsey doesn't suggest chloroform for their staff at that point, but they do stop matching their pension plan contributions. And this explains why almost all McKinsey employees are far younger than 55. On the other hand, there's some evidence that older brains are in some ways better brains. I read of a Harvard study, maybe Dr. Gotzi can clarify this for us, that found that in older brains, the branching of dendrites increases and connections between distant brain areas strengthen. These changes enable the aging brain to better detect relationships between diverse sources of information, capturing the big picture and understanding the global implications of specific issues. Perhaps this is the foundation of wisdom. It is as if with age your brain becomes better at seeing the entire forest and worse at seeing the trees. This suggests that Dr. Osler and McKinsey, smart as he was, and they are both dead wrong. If we do get smarter in some ways, as we move into what is considered old age, what are the implications? Should we work longer? There's the issue of young people wanting jobs currently occupied by their elders. But there's also a more selfish take from the older person's standpoint. What should we do with the enhanced ability of our aging brain to connect the dots? Assuming we've saved enough to live on by age 60 or so, why should we hand over our muscular gray matter to the same or another employer? We might find more creative options. What I most enjoy since I retired is the agency. For the first time in my life, I have control of my time and attention. And in recent years, this agency brought me to the McGill Community for Lifelong Learning. Here, I have found among my peer group of older people something remarkable and unexpected. It is a dynamic group of people who are excited about life. They're excited because they're exercising their minds, often with greater range and intensity than much younger people. I say unexpected because even an older person like me had some ageist attitudes. My exposure to MCLL has purged those biases, and I want us to share this. In fact, we have a responsibility to do so in an aging society. We can do more here at McGill to build this movement. We can bring in those who have never had a chance to study. We can bring in those who want to improve their language, writing, and presentation skills. We can help those who are writing memoirs to share with their grandchildren. We can guide those who want to learn how to live healthier, better, and longer lives. We can bridge to younger people through intergenerational courses. Be mentors to middle-aged and younger people, sharing our experience and expertise. We can also mobilize our own wealth to finance expansion of our program in a measured way that protects the quality we've achieved while also extending it to those who cannot afford it. We can also give our community the tools to advocate for itself and for others in the larger society to which we belong, our peer group, our city or town, our province, our country, our world. And now it is my very pleasant task to introduce our distinguished panelists who will delve into these issues a little more. Carola Weil, Dean of McGill's School of Continuing Studies and a distinguished political scientist in her own right, will make some introductory remarks. And then we will hear from our keynote speaker, Dr. François Vella, President of the International Association of Universities of the Third Age, who will describe the Third Age learning movement worldwide. Dr. Vella took on this role after a distinguished career as a professor of economics, specialized in international tourism. We were talking earlier about how in tourism older people are heavily represented among the tourist class. So that's an interesting and relevant link. He teaches at the University of Toulouse and he's taught at the École nationale de l'aviation civile in France. Bienvenue à Montréal et à l'Université McGill, Dr. Vella. And then we will have some remarks also from Dr. Serge Gauthier, Professor Emeritus in McGill's Departments of Neurology, Neurosurgery, and Psychiatry at McGill, and an expert on Alzheimer's and dementia, who will talk about the impact of these conditions on seniors, as well as the latest efforts to find ways to delay their onset. And I want to thank Dr. Gauthier for being here on his birthday today. So, and then our next panelist will be Lynn Landry, a partner at Age Tech Capital, a Montreal investment company focused on projects to provide services for seniors. Lynn is also a board member of the Aging in Place Challenge at the National Research Council. She will discuss ways to improve the quality of life for older adults and fund projects that empower older adults living at home in their communities. And finally, Ruth Pelletier, founder of Seniors Action Quebec, which works to maintain and enhance the vitality of English-speaking Quebec seniors. Ruth is a former broadcaster who was focused on consumer rights in her career and worked for 10 years for Alliance Quebec, including as its executive director, Alliance Quebec, which you know is an advocacy organization for English-speaking Quebecers. I'd also like to mention the presence of Fred Jensen, who's in the front row with Seniors Action Quebec, executive director of the organization that Ruth founded. So thanks very much for being here, Fred. So without further ado, I pass the floor to Carola Weil, Dean Carola Weil.
Without strangling, I think maybe we'll take it this way. Bonjour, bonjour et bienvenue à tous et toutes. Cela nous fait plaisir de vous accueillir à l'Université McGill et spécialement the McGill Community for Lifelong Learning. The title of this panel, Getting Smart in Old Age, is a play on that expression, too soon old, too late smart, which, by the way, is often ascribed to my own people, Germans, but actually was first uttered by Benjamin Franklin, I discovered, as one of life's tragedies. I became interested in what we now refer to as third age learning, i.e. how older adults learn, during my early years working in the field of continuing education. As I was trying to build programming that served the varied needs of adult learners, first in the United States and now here at McGill, I researched this topic and found that there really is no such thing as being too old to learn. There were differences in how older adults, seniors, learn, but not whether or not we could learn new information. Research has shown, as Chris also just referenced, and I'm sure we'll hear more about, that the older we get, the longer it may take us to learn something new, but in fact, we tend to learn it much more deeply, building on a life of accumulated knowledge and observation. Now, if only I could remember what it was, but that is another panel on memory loss perhaps, or perhaps Professor Gauthier will enlighten us there. There also is ample data to suggest that we should expect greater human longevity and life expectancies in most parts of the world. This has profound implications for learning as well. The traditional view that we complete our formal education in the first quarter or so of our life, and that's it, is no longer serving us well. But of course, we have only begun the lifelong learning we need in order to thrive. And as you have heard me say before, the longer we live, the longer we need to learn. Continuing education, I think, must include seniors or third agers. Happily, we live longer, healthier lives than we once did. This is good, but longer lives bring changes and implications for all of us. People work longer by necessity in many cases and by choice in others. Even retirees who no longer work for an income serve in volunteer capacities, witness MCLL, contributing vital services to our communities. As Dean of Continuing Studies at McGill University, I lead a team of dedicated professionals to help guide individuals, as well as employers and communities, in navigating the pathways of lifelong learning, up and reskilling from young adulthood to well past 100. The School of Continuing Studies offers learning in a variety of formats tailored to the needs at each stage of life and work. Whether for mid-career professionals, immigrants and refugees seeking to gain access to Quebec's labor market, Indigenous peoples, parents re-entering the workforce after childcare, and many others. It also includes, I am proud to say, the McGill Community for Lifelong Learning, which has been organizing and delivering study groups, lectures, and other programs to seniors for 35 years. And happy birthday to MCLL also. Almost entirely volunteer run, about 150 people deliver over 100 study groups and just as many lectures every year. These peer learning activities reach more than 1,000 people a year directly, and I would venture a guess indirectly many more. MCLL is a great example of third age learning at its best, designed and delivered for and by individuals themselves experiencing both the joys and challenges of aging, post-retirement or near the end of their professional careers. There is an enthusiasm, even excitement among members. It's palpable at this time of year when the back-to-school feeling is in the air. The MCLL study groups met last week, I gather, for the first time this term, and what I hear is there was amazing energy, everyone eager to get to work. So, obviously, and I don't need to say this to this particular group, older people are an amazingly rich resource for society. And third age learning organizations help mobilize that resource. Third age learning organizations like MCLL are a form of self-help to seniors themselves. The intellectual effort and engagement MCLL study groups demand help sustain and sharpen cognitive skills. They improve individuals' quality of life. They create a convivial context for mutually rewarding social exchange, for new friendships and new projects. But third age learners are not just helping themselves. Here at McGill University, we are pleased that many of our MCLL seniors have volunteered to mentor students enrolled in other educational programs of the School of Continuing Studies and indeed across the university. For example, they are meeting with and providing guidance to students in our Experiential Empowerment and Professional Development Program, SEED, funded by Scotiabank to help individuals in financially insecure survival situations gain access to careers that fully utilize their professional skills. Other MCLL members are helping students from outside of Quebec, improving their French, offering informal conversation along with insights into daily life and attitudes in this unique province, la belle province. MCLL also has organized several intergenerational study groups in which 20-something undergraduates engage in discussion with people much, much older, in some cases maybe half a century older. It is a remarkable sharing opportunity in which both groups benefit. The point is that McGill University and MCLL in particular embrace a co-generational model of lifelong learning. Through constant interaction and engagement across generations, we actually produce new knowledge, new ways of thinking and seeing the world around us that can help us address global challenges that extend well beyond any one life or lifetime. We are here to listen to a stimulating panel discussion, and it is my great honor to pass the microphone, he actually has his own microphone, to François Vela, and I welcome you, bienvenue à Université McGill and the School of Continuing Studies. I congratulate you for your leadership of worldwide third age learning across multiple continents. I would also like to thank the other distinguished panelists who have joined us today, and most importantly, all the lifelong learners in this room and beyond. I think we're being recorded as well. I look forward to all of your remarks and the discussion. Thank you.
So thanks a lot. This one better?
Turn it off.
I think you just have to make sure the other.
Turn that one off.
This one.
Est-ce qu'on m'entend?
Non, vous êtes mieux.
Non. Comme ça? Yeah. Okay, is it fine?
Yeah.
It's good. Thanks a lot. I'm very glad to be here in your university.
Yeah.
But,
It's on.
un peu plus près alors?
It's going.
Comme ça?
Oui, ça va, très bien.
D'accord.
Merci.
First of all, I would like to thank you, all the members of the governing board of the MCL in McGill, and I have here a document. This is the charter of the University of Third Age, and here you have my university, that is Toulouse, and Toulouse was founded in 1229. So this is the university. And as well I have a souvenir from Toulouse, because you told me that you don't know Toulouse, so I hope you will come. This is the pen from our university, Toulouse capital. And to my friend Robert, I have this brochure. This is done by our student, older senior student, and it's a humoristic life in the university, à l'université du troisième âge de Toulouse. So I am very happy to be here because we had since several years meeting on Zoom, conversation, but I didn't have the chance to visit you here in McGill University. I came before to Montreal for different purpose, but I never came to McGill University. So this morning I had the chance with Robert to visit the campus with young students, and you know, I find the feeling of what we are. We are older person inside the university of the younger person. So this is the philosophy of our universities. It is to be inside the university and to reach the same expectation as a young student. That means to have academic courses, academic lessons, academic possibilities to learn something new. perhaps sometimes we didn't have the chance in our past to learn all the topics that are taught in the universities. And now, as University of Ardèche, as being inside university, we have this chance. So this is the origin of the University of Ardèche. It is to reach two expectations. The first expectation is from the universities, because very often universities are between professor and young student. We said in French, tour d'ivoire. And what we are doing, what you are doing here, is to open the door of the university to the society. And the second expectation is that our society is older and older because of the life that is, as you know, longer and longer. So we have the chance as older person to have quite a long time to do what we want to do when we retire. So we have, as older person, a lot of expectation. And as the university opens the door to older person, we can reach the two expectations. The expectation from the side of the university and the expectation from the side of the society. We had this year, in May, the 50th anniversary of the University of Ardèche in Toulouse. That is inside the University Toulouse Capitol. It was 50 years ago that this movement of University of Ardèche, linked with universities, started. And now, as you said, I am as the president, I am in charge of the International Association of University of Ardèche. That means that in 50 years, there is a global movement of University of Ardèche all over the world. Our association, the IUTA, bring together universities from 85 countries all over the 6 continents. We are working and we have members from Australia to Chile. I said these 2 countries because last year we had 2 events. One is in Australia, in the Queensland, in a city I didn't know myself, perhaps you know. The city is Rockhampton. I had to look on the map to see where is it. It is the capital of the beef, you know, the meat for Australia, and it is in Queensland. And they have a very active UTRIE inside the university, and they start the celebration of the 50th anniversary of the UTRIE. And this celebration ended in Toulouse, but last year, the last celebration was in Santiago de Chile, where there is the University Católica de Santiago de Chile that organized an international conference for this anniversary. So the movement of university bring together as well more than 10 million senior students. So you are a group that is part of these 10 million senior students all over the world. But be careful. In this number, more than 60% are in China. Not only because China is I think today India just is
Yes.
passed in the first position and China is the second, but both are 1,400,000,000 inhabitants. But it's not for this reason. Well, this is one reason, but not only. In China, there is what is called an example or model of university of age, because the government of China finance the university of age all over the country. That means they finance directly, like Ministry of Education, finance directly the building, finance directly the professor, and finance directly the staff, the employees. So this is why it is so developed in China. But it's not developed until now for everybody. It's developed mainly for the former civil servants that have access. And the other retired person, sometimes they cannot go because they don't have enough financement. Even if they have quite a lot, they don't have enough. But there is something more in China, that as the government do implement this kind of policy, you know that China actually is a politically communist country, but in fact, and economically, is a very capitalistic country. So in China, you have now a lot of very big firms, international and national firms. And these firms are doing the same for their own retired employees that the government is doing for the civil servant. So now you have some big firms that finance the building, the staff, the professor for their own retired employees. And our first vice president of the International Association is the president of the National Association in China, and I had the possibility to visit this University of age. I must say that on one hand they are doing a lot and very well. On the other hand, they miss something that perhaps is the most important. What does that mean? That means that the government provides all the facilities. For instance, in a building like this one, it will be a lot of sport facilities for not only classroom, but sport facilities dedicated at the older student. But they are more focusing on leisure activities, such as music, dance, leisure and arts activities, rather than academic purpose, as we are and you are here in Canada, in Quebec, in Montreal, doing. So now there is an evolution in China to go closer from what we are doing in other parts of the world. There is globally three categories of university of age. I spoke about China. This is the third category. The first category is what we are here, what we are in Toulouse, what we are in continental Europe, what we are in a lot of American countries. I mean mostly Southern America or Central America countries, and in Western, Southern, Eastern Europe, and some part of Asia. That means University of age, group of lifelong learning seniors that are inside the university, that are very strong link, more than link, that are hosted by the university. But there is as well a third example, third model. This is what is implemented in UK. what we said in France, that British are always do differently. And so in the UK, they implement University of Old Age, but differently. What are they? There are the University of Old Age in UK. There are more than 1,000 University of Old Age in UK. But very often there are very small universities that take the name of universities, but have nothing to do with university. Because there are there are institutions that are doing several activities, mostly leisure activities as in China. Sometimes they do some lecture, but they don't look at the academic level. They will ask somebody to speak, I don't know, about different topic, but without any link with universities. So this example is implemented in some British influenced countries, such as in India, and in India there is a lot of network of U3A that nothing to do with universities, and such as it is in Australia, in South Africa, and in New Zealand, for instance. So I don't want to say that it is bad. I want to say that it is something different. And so in our international association, we accommodate everybody. So we have this first model, the second model, the third model that come. But from my personal opinion, I am professor of university, as you said, in international economics, and I will promote as much as I can the link, the strong link with the university. Because for University of Old Age, there is one word that is very important, is the word university. University, as I said, to have intergenerational and to have some academic get to what we expect. So this is the panorama of the University of Old Age in the world. Now, I would like to say a few words about what we are doing from the international point of view, and since the COVID time, because you know the COVID time is like something that is perhaps much more important as the consequences that it seems. What I want to say is that on the international point of view, we are universities, so we focus on education, on training, on learning, lifelong learning. But with the COVID, we think that this is not enough. And we need to do what's done in the university, that means research. So from the International Association, IUTA, we keep our cooperation program on education, on exchange of way of education, on different topics of education, but we add cooperation, international cooperation on research. And now, since more than 2 years, we implement new program on cooperation on research. I would like to give you a few examples of this program. One of the programs is about the archaeological Silk Road with U3As. You know that in many U3As we are focusing a lot about history, about archaeology as well. And we, in the IUTA, we have university from Europe to China. So we start in Valencia, in Spain, with the U3A from the Polytechnic University of Valencia. Valencia was the end of the Route de la Soie. And we start a program that is from Valencia to China, not from China to Valencia, but from Valencia to, that means from Europe to China, with about 20 countries and several universities in this country. And what is the purpose of this program? The purpose is to implement lecture focusing of archaeology in the different cities or countries that are on this road, Silk Road. So we had seminar and workshop in Valencia and as well in Alicante, where there is a submarine archaeological museum that is linked with Silk Road. Then we had another one in Spain and one in France, then in Italy, in Ferrara, and so on. And it's a 4 years program. We are at the second year, and we shall have in the next year in Lebanon, in Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, and so on until China. And in China, we shall have 4 steps for 4 cities that will participate to that. In each of these cities, the youth here are very important because they prepare the lecture, they implement the lecture, and they will exchange. This is why we have international cooperation. They will exchange between the university along this Silk Road. And as well, we will prepare a book with the different stop of this Silk Road, presented the universities and some program of the universities. So this is an example of what we are doing. So the result of the research will be to have this book. A second research, and I am very grateful that my colleague Albert Evrard, that is here, leads this program, is about the protection of the right of older persons. Because you know that in many countries there are a lot of problems and the right of older person is not protected enough. So we have a group of legal professor of droit, of avocats that work together in different countries to prepare a survey, and we had already a survey of 60 pages about that, about this problem of protection of right of senior. The goal is to present this survey to the United Nations in New York and in Geneva, where there is a Department de Droits de l'Homme, and in which we participate to the preparation of an international convention about the protection of the right of older persons. So this is a second example of research, and we need for this research to have the feedback from you, from older students, about what they have in their experience or the experience of some neighbors, of friends, regarding this matter. And a third example is senior tourism. You know that as older person, we like to travel. Most of us like to travel. But there is a problem when you are a retired person, is that you have more time, but sometimes as well less money. So we need to invent new way of doing tourism for seniors. And one of the possibilities is to go to a destination, to stay longer, and to look and to visit deeper. That means with more interest. And for that, our universities are very important. What is the idea? The idea is to develop what is called senior study tour. That means that when you go to a destination, for instance to my city in Toulouse, you will first go to my university, to the University of Ardèche. And you will have a lecture not about the city, but about perhaps one emblematic monument of the city. That could be, I don't know, a church or a cloister or a painting sometimes. And you will have 1 hour lecture about it. And you can exchange, you can have a discussion, and after you will go to visit. But with more time, because you will be very aware of what you shall visit. And you will take much more interest for them. So you can stay longer on the destination, because you know what is costly in terms of traveling if you go every day to another city. If you go 1 day to Paris, 1 day to London, and so on. So this is very costly, and in fact it's not so, it's only a collection of postcards. And if you are doing in this way, it could be much more useful and fun. So this is what we are promoting, and we organize. It was just before COVID, an international conference about that, with 50 countries participating. And we need to do some research as well on this purpose of senior tourism. So this is a third example. So finally, what I would say that you are here a group of older students, as we said, but you are part of a very big family of more than 10 million senior students. So you have the possibility to exchange from internet, to exchange on visiting as well. And this is why it's so important to do the same as we are doing for our young students, that we have a lot of program of exchange between universities, is to develop something like that, but in the way of learning on the topics, learning as doing or participating to some research. So thank you very much for your invitation. It's a great pleasure to be with you in this meeting, workshop. Merci beaucoup et j'espère vous voir bientôt à Toulouse, en France. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, François. J'ai le plaisir de connaître son frère Bruno. Hey, Bruno. Oui. Et je dois dire que votre anglais est meilleur que celui de votre frère. His brother's English is interesting. Thank you for inviting me for my birthday. Actually, it's on the 18th, but in Australia it's already the 18th, practically speaking. And I'm a young retiree. I retired from McGill 3 years ago at the onset of the pandemic. It just coincided. And the first thing that happened is I was told to write a booklet about what to tell families when there's a diagnosis of dementia. And that took off to other things, into something called Dementia Education Program. So I'll tell you a bit about that. But first, my main topic, main reason to be here is to give you some hope, because it just happens this summer, there was a publication in the Lancet, the British medical newsletter. And you have a copy, those who cleverly saw that on the way in. The exam is at the end. It's about 14 modifiable risk factors that prevent dementia or delay it by a significant number of years. And education is the number one And, yes. So it starts, of course, in early life. Some countries, unfortunately, girls don't have access to school. Others, they have to go to work at a young age. We're fortunate in Canada and in France to have our kids staying in school until age 16. That's the minimum, I think, in Canada. So we're doing better than rural parts of China, Sri Lanka, and others. So from a societal level, it's a big potential modifiable factor. Stay in school longer. But jumping to us, yeah, we're still learning, and that's a part of the modifiable risk factor under education. If you look at the list, you see social isolation in late life as a factor that's modifiable, and we're together. So whether it's online or physically, this is another factor that this association is modifying. And in the middle, in yellow, it's the midlife, so-called 40 to 60. There's a young woman here in that age group. Your heart. What's good for the heart is good for the brain. And it's never too late to treat your high blood pressure, your diabetes. So there's a group of vascular risk factors that have been known for some time. There's very good work that was done in China, actually, and in France. Madame Forêt was the pioneer to show that if you are good to your heart, you're good to your brain. And this is the modifiable factor against brain aging that's been known the longest. New one this year, LH, so LDH, so one of the blood markers of abnormal cholesterol, bad cholesterol, as it's often called. You should treat it whether you're 40 or 60, maybe not if you're 85. So midlife, treatment of vascular risk factors. If you have to take a statin, good for you. Just take it until you're 85. And blood pressure should be controlled, not too low. When you're over a certain age, you don't need so many blood pressure pills, etc. So, practical message from a dementia prevention perspective, and this is fresh information. It's throughout the lifetime. It will vary over the time course. So what's modifiable factor like high blood pressure, especially the first number, systolic, may not be as important if you're over 85, but it's very important when you're 45. So there's different factors at play. The sum of all these modifiable risk factors equals about 45%, 45%, of the risk of dementia. That's big. It's bigger than any pill we have, any medicine we're working on. And from a societal perspective, this is the way to go. And I think France has leadership in that regard, and we should also do that in Canada. Now, back to dementia education program. You have another sheet you picked up with all the resources we have online. One of them is the booklet available in 14 languages, including Ukrainian. Very proud of that. For free. Download for free. You have also a course just started last week, 10 modules about dementia. If you're a care partner, if you have a recent diagnosis, it's all there. You learn at your own pace. You get a certificate if you do the 10 modules, some motivation. We also have online live interactions with social workers. We have a new programs just starting at Verdun as a pilot, and eventually it will be St. Mary's Hospital, Jewish General Hospital. Seniors get together, those seniors who have in common caring for someone with dementia. So more opportunities to learn and to help each other. So it's an extension of what you're doing, and we're all one big family. Merci.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. A little bit of story about, can you hear me well?
No.
No? Louder?
That's fine.
Better? Okay. I've always worked in finance and investing. I started 12 years ago doing some impact investing. And so it's investing with a purpose and measuring your impact. And I grew up with a mom that was a podologue, and most of her clients were older adults. And I was helping her during the summers, and I got to be exposed very early on with all of the opportunities and challenge of getting older. And when I came back to Canada, I was away for 15 years, and I came back to Canada, I met with my partner, Alan McIntosh. And Alan, that knows Canada very well, Alan was an investor and has been investing in neuroscience at the junction of AI for the past several years. And actually, I have to say, and very proud to say, it's actually the federal government that came to Alan and said, we want to accelerate more technology for the aging population. And so this is how the whole story started of HTech Capital. We're 3 partners. And the federal government said, how can we do this? How can we accelerate technology? And we looked at 2 partners. One is AgeWell from the University of Toronto. So AgeWell has been up and running for, I think, a little bit less than 10 years now. And they basically look and work with researchers on how to accelerate and add in some technology to some of the findings and research that they're doing and bring it to market. And there's another partner here in Quebec that's called MedTech, and they've been into also innovation for the healthcare industry. And we looked at that, and they've created something that's called Envisage, and it's a program, it's a $50 million program to accelerate startups for the older population. And we said, okay, after the environment, this is the biggest societal challenge we'll be facing over the next few years. We need to be at the heart of that. And so we're the first firm here in Canada specializing in investing in technologies for older adults. I have 2 partners that are 60 plus that have, as they say, rewired from their ex-career. One of them is a McKinsey, was the head of McKinsey Canada, that got kicked out at 60, so it's now 60 in Canada. But he's still a champion ski racer. Alan is an avid cyclist that goes 18 times up the Mont Royal every week during the summertime. I mean, they're just phenomenal. But also we wanted to walk the talk and demonstrate how intergenerational leadership and firm can be, and how to work together from both of our strengths and advantages. How do we look at technology? I mean, being a venture capitalist and being an investor, it's always about building bridges and building connections between entrepreneurs, innovation, product and commercialization and distributions, and universities and all of that. But an impact investor looks at way much more. And so I'm very happy to be here, because how do we take the senior study tour and scale it? And you need technology to do that. And so, that's how we think about the market. We've looked at the major sort of pain point at getting older. So lacking of purpose, isolation, chronic diseases. And so we looked at the biggest sort of problems that we could look at from a technology angle. And I'll give you a few examples. We invested in a company that is a doctor and a tech entrepreneur, both successful second-time entrepreneurs that decided on tackling type 2 diabetes here in Canada. And they've put together a program on an app and a platform where doctors can follow at a distance the type 2 diabetes, and there's a sort of like a, if you want, a system approach with a coach, a nutritionist, and all of that. And the first clinical trial, they had a 46% remission rate. And so it's really promising. They're now entering the US. We're supporting them and in many ways here in Canada, but also in the US as well. And so we knew chronic disease was something we wanted to help scale with technology, and we found the best technology and founder to be able to invest in that. And now we're looking at a company that is at the junction of continuing education, not the academic one, but more like a Coursera or a Udemy, and it's called Get Set Up, and they have courses online, and they create a community feeling where people can actually participate and exchange. and it's a bit of a mix between YouTube and courses, and so it's a media company. It's older adult teaching older adults only, and they're really purists at the way that they want to do this, and we're really proud to say that we're looking into becoming an official partner and investing in them. But if you have your health, and if you have the stimulation in life, if you don't have the financial means to be able to look at life and enjoy fully your retired years, it's not worth it. So the Maslow pyramid. And so we wanted to look at that. I mean, there's more than 50% in Canada that said they're worried about their financial situation as they retire. In the States, it's 2/3. And I could give on statistics how scary it is in the US, but if you're not financially stable, how can you grow healthier and in a stress sort of mode? And we're house rich and cash poor usually in the segments of the population that haven't saved enough. And so how do we unlock the value and decumulation in a fair way, in a just way, with older adult? And so we scratch our head for a long time on solutions for that, and we found one in here in Canada that addresses that. And so this is how we think. It's like a system change and looking at older adults and their challenge, and how can we bring opportunity as well to the market. We think that innovation and technology can actually just fast track our current systems, and help institutions like universities to actually go bolder and bigger and go faster. And so this is the work that we do.
I tend to talk quite loud, so can you hear me in the back?
Actually, if you could hold the microphone fairly close to your mouth, then Ruth, I think we'll try, that would be the best.
I'm trying to turn my pages as well. Well, thank you very much for inviting me, and I'm going to give you a little bit of a synopsis, I guess, of all the different variety of seniors we deal with at Seniors Action Quebec. We're a nonprofit provincial organization, so we have seniors that we hear from in rural, remote communities, urban settings, and small towns. So my talk today is the importance of staying active and involved as we age. No one size fits all. You may have heard some people say, oh, I'm not up to going to that. They don't want to hear from me, an old person like me, but you're mistaken. You have value. You have contributions and participations that you can do that will make a difference. People want to hear about your experiences and what you have to offer. Plus you gain so much more from the experiences themselves. Ways that you can be involved by attending and participating in social events, in learning opportunities such as McGill Lifelong Learning. Traveling was mentioned earlier. By volunteering for organizations that can use and benefit from your skills. With a high cost of living, such as rent and the basic life expenses, many seniors now find themselves in a position that they may be required to return to work. And it could be either part-time, a contract, and sometimes full-time. Businesses are now starting to realize the value of having mature workers. Seniors are reliable. They have excellent work ethics, and their mature workers often require less training because of their life experiences. Returning to work can cover the unexpected expenses such as replacement of appliances, a new computer, medical devices such as hearing aids, glasses, or dentures. We take this all for granted until you're faced with it. Others may want to travel to a warmer climate so that they can be more active without the fear of ice and falls. So you're staying involved, you're staying mobile, and your psychological health is much better. Intergenerational programs was mentioned, and there is huge success. We've participated in a few of them for both the youth and the seniors themselves. Just prior to COVID, we had a project called Teenagers, and Technology. The seniors brought their cell phones, their laptops, and their iPads. And the students from high schools throughout the Quebec, Greater Montreal area, taught them how to work with some of the difficulties they were having. Very briefly, an example, in James Ling, if you know where that school is, there was a lady that was there, and she was literally dancing around the library afterwards saying, I got to talk to my sister, I got to see my sister. She was in the islands. She learned how to FaceTime. Another son who, because in our community, the English community, a lot of our adult children have left the province. A mother was here who was deaf. A son was in Toronto. He was a businessman. He bought a cell phone and sent it to his mom and said, please, to us, if there's anything that you can do during that training session, would you please teach my mother how to text? They were able to have conversations with each other. So it opened up a whole new horizon. I remember a lady years ago, she was a community activist as well. Many of you may have heard of her, Constance Middleton Hope. And she stated, just because I've turned 65, please don't put me out to pasture. I still have lots to give and I want to be included. I'm sure you've also heard many seniors say, I'm busier than ever since I retired. There are many reasons for that. Some have always said, I'm not going to be one that's going to sit around at my house and do nothing. While others have a deep sense of giving back, and others enjoy the social contact with other people and do want to continue to learn. Perhaps learning was difficult when they were younger, and it was a challenge and something they feel that's missing in their life, and they want to go back and be able to do it. What are the benefits? You will develop new friendships, you will expand your social network, you will develop new life experiences and opportunities. Your sense of self-worth will pay back immensely in psychological rewards. Financial independence gives you the sense of purpose and a feeling that you're not a burden to your families or society. We want to keep our minds busy, productive, and functioning. The truth is in the saying, use it or lose it. Seniors are starting to have physical limitations and often try extremely hard to maintain their cognitive capabilities by being more involved in a variety of activities, so they compensate on the other end. Our way of having value and maintaining a sense of belonging. It's not that we're just old and we're going to sit in the rocking chair, we can still contribute. What have we learned? Due to COVID-19, we have learned from the negative effects that the lack of involvement and the loss of human contact can cause. Anxiety, depression, insomnia, poor eating habits, loss of mobility, psychological issues, and in some cases, addictive problems. An extreme sense of loss. How can society encourage seniors to remain involved and active? To acknowledge the benefit to organizations, society, and to the senior themselves. Promote the value of volunteering and offer incentives. There couldn't be a better time with the serious needs in our hospitals, our schools, at our food banks, and with our homeless. How can organizations encourage seniors to participate? Be mindful of the needs that seniors have, such as accessibility to encourage and enable seniors with limitations to be in a position to participate. Offer online opportunities besides just the face-to-face. Access to public transportation and parking is key, so have your locations close to those benefits. Are the costs to be a member, enroll, or attend affordable? Often seniors and organizations have activities, but if they paid a membership, can they afford to also attend the activity? Create programs that are timely, useful, fun, and of interest to seniors. The importance of addressing these issues, and I'm on the end. We need to be prepared for the demographic increase in the number of seniors we will have in the next 10 years. We need to be prepared for the increased number of centenarians. In 2022, Canada had nearly 13,500 centurions and 43% increase over 2018. The summary of all of this is we will fight social isolation, depression, loneliness, create a better quality of life for our seniors. It will be cheaper to society in the long run as there should be fewer health issues and costs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ruth. That's a real call to action. You can see why Ruth has done so much in her life for seniors in Quebec. I mean, it's really wonderful to have you here and have all of the panelists. Really, thank you very much for your contributions. We've laid out a lot in front of you here in the audience, and before I ask the panelists to react to one another, I wonder if there's some reactions from the audience, if there's anybody who would like to get up and make a comment. I see Zoe has a microphone there. If you can put up your hand, and if you have a question, we have about 25 minutes for Q&A. And so I'd like to give the audience a chance who sat quietly and listened to all of us. So maybe you could say who you are and
I'm a former member of MCLL and intending to come back in the winter. Monsieur Vella, Dr. Vella, you mentioned the UK, so I'm going to be a bit... the UK has got serious problems now with the funding of the universities. Some of them are sort of approaching bankruptcy. I don't know what the situation is here, but you say that the model that the UK has for the third age, troisième âge, is different. Given that some of the universities in the UK may fall by the wayside, is the UK model perhaps more interesting than you seem to think?
Okay, that's one. Maybe we could collect just a couple of more questions if there are any others. So we've got the one on the UK universities, and there's a gentleman here in front, Zoe.
My name is Berthold Benoit.
We'll just get the microphone so everybody can hear you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Berthold Benoit. I have a question relating to the synergy that can be developed within a family between the elders and the youngsters. I realize there's a lot of research going on. I was wondering if there's any progress or research going on in the way of, for example, grandpa and grandma who are house rich and cash poor, and junior who's having difficulty entering the housing market. And on the one side, you have all the wisdom and the cash possibility. On the other end, you have the earning capacity and the energy. And I'm just thinking, is there any way that we can help families develop a long-term project? For example, it's very seldom you see a family who thinks in the way of, in 3 generations, perhaps we will not have to work. We'll be able to educate on a full-time basis throughout the family. I'm just wondering about that.
Thanks very much. It's a very interesting question. I'm not sure who to put it to. Why don't, Dr. Vella, you start with the one on the universities in England, and maybe if you could talk about funding of universities generally, not just the English case, with all due respect to England, but we have the same challenges right here in Quebec. So, and then I think the second question might be one I put to Ruth Pelletier, because I'm sure you have thoughts on that.
Thank you. Regarding UK, the situation is a little bit more diversified. I visited and we had a meeting with the University of Oxford in Cambridge. And in Cambridge, they are not similar as other UTRA in UK. There is a very important University of Oxford. I don't know, there are 2,000 or 3,000 members. And they are very linked with the University of Cambridge. And they are hosted by the University of Cambridge, but with perhaps a little bit different, So it's not something uniform. Now, regarding the funding, of course, this is one of the most important points, because the objective of the University of Utrecht is to open to everybody. That means that we don't have to have obstacles from the financial point of view or obstacles from the academic point of view. So even if you don't have any master degree or so on, you are welcome at the University of Utrecht. And as well, the philosophy is not to ask to get big revenue from the fees of the University of Utrecht, but as well, we need to have some finance. So how does it work? In many universities of Utrecht that are inside the university, they have, and I can give you the example of my university in Toulouse. We have quite enough in terms of finance. Why? Because we are hosted by the university. So that means that we don't pay, we pay a small amount for the conference room, for the office, and so on. And we ask for the older student to pay fees. Normally the fees was 100 euro per year. Now it's more, nearly 200 euro per year. But 200 euro per year is not so much, because you have conference, you have lecture, you have activities for all the academic year. And as we have quite a lot of students, that means because of the capacity of the room, we cannot have more than 800 or less than 1,000, but 800 with a revenue of 200 euro by student is quite enough, and is enough to pay for some lecturer. For instance, we don't have volontariat for lecturers. Sometimes we have, but usually we pay an additional what we call heure complémentaire, heure supplémentaire, to the professor of the university. It's not very costly, because in France we don't pay too much for 1 hour or 1 hour and a half of conference. It's about 100 euro. But because the professor of our university, they get the salary. So this is something additional. So we can have a right balance. And so the financial point of view is sustainable. But in the UK model, you have to pay for all. You have to pay for the building, you have to pay for the electricity, for all, and you have to pay for the teacher. And so in this case, you need to ask much more money for the fees than in the model where the university are involved in the University of Utrecht. So this is what I can say from my experience. And in the Chinese one, as private or public, is different, because it's the firms or the government that finance. So the Chinese students, they don't pay nothing, no fees, because all is free of charge, because it's financed or by government or by the firm. So that could be perhaps something to develop in other countries.
Could be, yeah. Thank you for that, Dr. Bella. And on the question on house rich, cash poor, Lynn, you were the one who mentioned that or used that expression. I'd be interested to hear from anybody who wants to take up the question. I just thought of Ruth, because you've worked in kind of where politics interacts with policy and advocacy, so that might be a way. And I wonder if I could just add, if Benoit would, Mr. Benoit would allow me to that, on intergenerational too. One looks at living arrangements in certain countries where young people and older people are living together and they can really benefit from one another in the way that you've just outlined. I wonder if you've had any experience with models like that here or elsewhere that have worked, and how we can replicate and scale up, as you said, Lynn.
I'll answer and
Yeah,
then
go ahead.
pass it to Lynn. Your concept is extremely valuable and very important with this time with the housing crisis that we're faced. One of the things that Seniors Action Quebec does do is we have webinars, and we had one this morning. And last year we did 8 on housing, because housing is very complicated. Provincial, municipal, and federal governments are implicated. And there's a lot of great creative ideas out there. Anybody saw the program, The Golden Girls? Well, there's Janet Torge, who is a CBC, former CBC reporter, who does work with the Gazette with Josh Freed. She has been the founder of Radical Rest Homes, and she's been at it for 10 years, is to have a concept of where women and gentlemen of a certain age could get together and cost share the work that's involved in having a house and having the security of somebody else living with you. There's also programs in New York. They had a beautiful historic building, and they decided, what are they going to do with it? It was vacant. They couldn't tear it down because it had historic value, and they wanted to use it. They've made it for accommodations for music students and for seniors who were in need of accommodation. And the condition for the students was that they had to eat one night a week with the senior, and they tried to pair them up and have dinner together. And they had to put on a musical concert, which is a way of them practicing their music talents, every Sunday afternoon. And it took off like great guns. Out west in Saskatchewan, Seniors Action Quebec had in 2019 a conference on housing, and we brought in a gentleman from Saskatoon, is the first Canadian gentleman or program that was accepted from the Kingdom of Denmark to copy or duplicate their services, and it's intergenerational. In St. Jerome, there's a program where you have a manager, and there's 3 units. There's handicap unit, there's for young families in need, and there is for seniors. And they're all interconnected. They have their independence, but they can get together and do social things. If you remember post World War II, people had boarders, and it was a way for a family to have income. They rented a room, they brought somebody in who had returned from the war, who needed some accommodations. And it's an ideal situation with family members, because it provides, like you say, the young person who's out and capable, physical, working, has the income but doesn't qualify to purchase a house because of the cost right now. But a senior who has the building but needs that security of someone being there. Government wants us to age in place, so it's a great solution, and I have no research on it, but we certainly should be promoting that concept. And if you know anybody in a housing organization or a housing advocate, throw it at them, because the government is looking for projects and programs. You know, Minister Duclos back a few years ago put $44 billion into housing strategy. There's still money sitting there, but we need the projects that the government's going to approve.
My God, it's such a rich question. It is a problem. The young generation won't have access to real estate as we did. There's lots of programs. The Netherlands is pretty much the country leading the way in trying to do this intergenerational sort of co-living. There's lots of apps and websites now popping up in every country for extra income, because that's what we're looking for. It's like most of the older retired people are looking for liquidity and extra income, and that could be also one event. When we invested in the release equity firm, we always look at the risk side of impact, and we were wondering if it had an impact on affordable housing, and went to the affordable housing experts in Canada, and basically they said no, because the young people, it's not the type of housing they're looking for. That being said, there's lots of organizations in Canada, there are several organizations in Canada that are trying to do nucleus home, which is a different concept, but it seems to be working in other countries, which is to put similar level of health, 4 or 5 people in one house, and the government is paying for the renovations for that. And so when a nurse or a health practitioner comes to the house, they serve 4 or 5 people at the same time. And so there's different ways of looking at it, but I mean, it's all of when buildings are built, like the real estate investors, when they build building with the intention of having intergenerational living, it's a bit difficult. It hasn't been proven yet for several reasons, and I'm happy to discuss it a little bit more. But it's a true question, and also there's a bit of resentment. The younger have to take care of the older parents, like we don't have the means to have professional coming at home. And so it's a double whammy in terms of income inequality. So it is a real question.
I go to the audience again. Is there anybody got a burning question? I see there's a hand up there.
A general question. I was wondering if you had any comments or included in your research some of the sites that offer exercises to prevent further cognitive deterioration or to keep you on your toes, whatever. I'm thinking of a site called Brain HQ.
Actually, can I just add a question to that as well? I think it's related to your question, which is a good question. I wanted to ask Dr. Gauthier, is there any difference between breaking social isolation by virtual contact, by like doing an exercise class or looking online for resources, or just if you allow me to add to the question, virtual contact as well as physical contact?
Excellent questions, both of you, and the pandemic actually helped to answer them, because some of the structured exercise programs that were started before the pandemic had to shift to exercise online, and it does work. So there's a program called Synergic, that's S-Y, Synergic, that was pioneered out of Toronto, and they just published their findings, and it works. Another thing that just came out a month ago is results from a 5-year follow-up from people in Montreal who attended a program called MEMO, M-E-M-O, out of the Institut de Gériatrie de Montréal. It was a 3-month intensive program to train your working memory. It was done with groups of 5. It works better, 5 rather than 1 alone. It's more efficient also. And the benefit that was measured right after was seen, of course, after 6 months, which was the main endpoint. But 5 years later, there's still a difference in decline in MoCA. So even an intensive program to train your memory can have a lasting impact. Exercise, physical exercise, of course, whether it's live or through some kind of a motivator, because you need motivation, as you know, to have a sustained physical program. And some people are doing both. So Dr. Louis Bérère at the Institut de Cardiologie de Montréal, the EPIC program, is combining both cognitive training and physical exercise that's matched to your abilities. Remember, these people at EPIC, many of them are at risk of heart attacks, or they had one. So it's tailored to your abilities, but combining the two is better than cognitive training alone or physical exercise alone. So combination is better. Good questions, guys. Good students.
There's another question here in the second row. So, yeah.
Are we on?
Yes.
Just further to what was said, I think Lynn Landby, you mentioned something about you've invested in an online course, older adults teaching older. I didn't catch the name of it.
Get set up. Get set up.
get set up?
It's an American company, but it was started by a Canadian fella.
Oh,
Yes.
thank
Then there's another hand up there in the back. Monsieur Lalonde.
Yes, my name is Jacques Lalonde. I'm a moderator at MCLL. When I'm hearing about all this, older people looks more as receivers, especially in the example with China. They offer to older people leisure. And I think there is an imbalance there because older people are missing to be in the position of giver, of contributing or participating or offering something. The only examples I heard about that was the participation in research. But I think this aspect is missing.
Who wants to take that one? You
Uh,
want to try that?
No, I do agree with your comment. In China, this is a service provided to senior, to older person, but with a strong participation. When you visit the class on calligraphy, on music, there is a strong involvement. But I agree with you. It's from the professor to the older student. So it's involvement, but it's not, as you said, something that start from the older person themselves. I agree totally.
Carola.
Sorry.
Perhaps I could just add, and I know there's another question all the way in the back, we'll get to it, but just to say that I think we have different mindsets in different countries and cultures that we also need to take into account. I think you raised a very important point. You mentioned the word agency earlier. How much agency do seniors, third agers have? In some countries, when I think back to conversations even with my own mother, who had the opportunity to continue to work after she retired, she didn't want to because she said, I deserve to be retired. Why should I have to continue to work? If I just want to sit there, why can't I sit there? Well, unfortunately, she ended up with dementia and has suffered the consequences since then. So I could say, well, had she continued working, maybe that wouldn't have said it. But it was there was a social stigma attached to taking on a part-time work, that it wasn't valued enough. And I think the question that I would add to you, it's not just, are we active participants, but is the work that we are contributing as volunteers, as researchers, as subjects, is that appropriately valued by our societies? And how is it played up so that, would we get tax credits, for example, for having to continuing to learn? Do we get education benefits? Do we get these kinds of benefits that suggest that society would value us continuing to be actively engaged? And I don't know if other panelists would want to add to that, but I know that there's someone waiting to speak.
Yes, that's volunteerism, very important point. Sir, at the back, you have a question.
My name is Eduardo. I'm with MCLL for several years. I wanted to make reference to a program that a professor from Toulouse mentioned many years ago in the 20th century, when I was going to school in the United States. We had a program with France for students where we could go to France and come to the United States and do jobs, small jobs. And when I got to France, I went to Vézelay, beautiful place, and I worked in a restaurant. and I picked up the language as much as I could. But then when the tourists came from the United States, England, Spain, I would look after them because of the language. And that would help the local people as well to do other things. And it worked out very well for everybody. In my case, I learned a new culture and I eventually went back to France and did another degree. So I think this has enormous potential for our age because we can contribute a lot of things. Learning, and we can learn a lot of things very quickly as well, because of our experience. So I think it merits some more.
Yeah, I think the point being made both by Carola and by you that volunteerism is very important, and also if anybody in the room is looking for opportunities to volunteer, I'm sure that Ruth Peltier can give you all kinds of suggestions into where where your skills can be put to good use and where they'll be appreciated. So François Villa, maybe the final word goes to you too, because we're at 3 o'clock, so we have to close.
Only one more to add. It is exchange from voluntary, but as well from the EU, we have the Erasmus program. This program is focusing for young students, but there is Erasmus Plus program that includes older students. And this program is mainly between EU universities, but as well it is from EU universities and universities that are linked with the EU and some countries that belong from EU, and Canada and Quebec are part of it. So that could be in the future a possibility to participating to Erasmus Plus program from your university.
Great. So we are at 3 o'clock and people have other engagements to go to. I know, sir, you had a question there, but we're out of time, I'm afraid, and we need to.
Very short.
Very short, okay, very short.
Provide us the links for the discussion that we've had, that we can access it for McGill members,
Yes.
MCLL members.
Yes, it's a very good question, actually. I'm
There's
glad.
a lot of people online that would like to share.
Yes, it is being recorded and it will be posted on our website, I think, and Zoe's there. We will make arrangements to send it out in one of our information bulletins, our e-bulletin or newsletter, and make it available to all members. Thank you very much to all of you. Let's have a round of applause for the panel.